Welcome, everybody, to the Learn Alpha podcast. I'm Van.
I'm Derek.
I'm Mike.
We'd like to welcome Mr. Mike Westman to the podcast. I've known Mike for almost 20 years now, man.
Yeah.
Mike and I have shared a lot of amazing days out on the water fishing, shooting each other with paintball guns back in the day. We've done a lot of fun stuff with Jeeps and all kind of stuff. Very thankful that Mike came on the podcast today. So who are you?
You already told him.
No. There's much more.
Yeah. Okay, Mike Westman. Nice to meet you, Derek. Appreciate it.
Nice to meet you, sir.
Thanks for calling me in here. I'm just an old guy trying to stay young, you know.
You're doing a good job at it.
I'm trying. I just turned 62, so I think it's part not wanting to, what did Clint say? Don't let the old man in.
Yep. That's
right. Great advice there. And being married to my young bride, that keeps me going. So life is good, and if you keep looking for the good stuff, you kind of tend to stay young. Spent a career in the Marine Corps. I was a pilot. Flew the CH-46 for most of the time. Did a couple things in between that, a tour in the infantry as a forward air controller for 1st Battalion, 9th Marines, the Walking Dead.
Right on.
Went to Pensacola as a flight instructor, went back to the CH-46 again, and then got selected to fly the V-22 as a test pilot, operational test pilot at the very beginning, 96 time frame.
And for those out there who don't know, that's the Osprey, correct?
That's the Osprey, the one that takes off like a helicopter and flies like a plane. Put that into the Marine Corps, and then my time was done. I went on to do other things, and 30 years later, my son did the exact same thing I did, flying the same plane. And he just got out, and now he's flying for Delta Airlines, so real proud of him, too.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Yeah.
It was awesome to watch, his career.
Yeah.
Just even the little picture here and there that I see
Yeah.
on Facebook, and just know who you are as a person. To see that translated into him is such an awesome thing, man.
Oh, that's cool. And then the other one, Adam, he's killing it. He's out in Denver. He's an electrical engineer. He's got more degrees than Carter's got little pills. He's smartest person I know.
Right on.
And doing cool stuff. Both married. And Kyle's got 2 kids. Just doing the family thing, trying to be grandpa, trying to teach them how to fish and drive tractors and cut grass and be helpful around the house. I don't have to do it, you know. Since then, I started a company with some friends of mine that were all Marines. We've been doing consulting work for the government for 23 years now. Looking for somebody to buy the company if anybody's interested.
Reach out to me.
Yeah, I'm tired of that too.
So tell us where you grew up, how you grew up, and what made you want to be a Marine.
Interesting. Okay. I grew up in Biloxi. I was born in Germany. My dad worked for the Air Force at the time, so we lived overseas and moved here in '69.
Okay.
Stayed here until it was time to go to college. So went to Notre Dame High School. Doesn't exist anymore in Biloxi. It became Mercy Cross. That became St. Patrick's.
Right.
Got a alternate appointment to the Naval Academy. I'll tell you, so I got to back up a little bit because why I wanted to be a Marine is a little bit of a different story, but I knew that I wanted to be a pilot.
Okay.
And people laugh sometimes when they hear why, but it was because of watching Snoopy shoot down the Red Baron.
Man, that's not funny. That was cool, man.
That's real life.
That is, when I saw that the first time, I was like, oh my God. And then that led to being just infatuated with anything that went up in the air.
Right.
And building the little models and on and on. So as I grew up, I was always, excited by aviation and all the things that it meant, the high performance of it, and just the power that you have when you're up there free to do whatever you want. I thought, at 5 or 6 years old, 7 years old, saw a video of an air show in Germany, and that was it. I was locked in. And so wanted to go to the Naval Academy because Mom thought that was a good idea, right? That was the way to do it, and get into the Navy that way and be a Navy A6 pilot. I had that all figured out. Trent Lott helped me get an alternate appointment to the Naval Academy, and at the same time I had applied to NROTC, and that scholarship came through. And the appointment that I got to the Naval Academy was an alternate one, which meant I didn't make the cut, right? But if somebody, I kind of half made the cut. If enough people fell out, then they'd bring this guy from Mississippi up there. But, no offense, but thank God it didn't work out because I had a great time at Tulane.
Green Wave.
Yeah, Navy still paid for everything. Still had the same commission as everybody else. So it's a great pipeline for kids that are thinking about going into the military, want to go in with a college degree, and you want the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Air Force, whoever to pay for it. Guidance counselors don't tend to talk about NROTC or Army ROTC. I don't know why. But it's a great program. They pay for room and board. They pay for everything but room and board. So all your tuition, books, and fees are covered. It's the same program my son went through. And you come out the other end with a commission in the military in whichever branch of the service you want to go into.
And no student loans.
And no student loans, except to pay for your room and board.
Right.
If you went that route. So anyway, why did I want to become a Marine? Again, sorry to my squid brothers, no offense. But when I got to Tulane, I met a bunch of Navy officers. And I met one Marine officer. And it was...
Big difference.
There was no question to me. That's where I belong. And once that hits you, once you know that, that's it. That's done. And you remember that too. When that got into your heart, you knew it. Fast forward 30 years, and I met. We had a neighbor who was a strange person to me. Strange in this way. She never knew anybody in the military before meeting me. And she was my age, right? We were in our mid-40s at the time. Nobody in her family, none of her friends, nobody she'd ever really had any kind of relationship was ever in the military. So she literally knew nothing about it other than, what you see on TV. And she called me one night in tears because her nephew had gone into the kitchen and told Mom and Dad that he wanted to join the Marine Corps. and Gail was saying, what can I do? How do I talk him out of it? I said, you don't. You can't.
No.
Kids, at that age when you go, and you can help me back this up, when somebody decides to go into the military, that's one thing. When somebody decides to go into the Marine Corps, that comes from here. There's a certain person that's attracted to that. Everybody has an idea of what that means, and they use that perspective to make those decisions. And if somebody's got an idea in their head that they want to go in the Marine Corps, that comes from in the heart, and you can't talk them out of it. That's what I told her. I said, I'll be happy to talk to him. Yeah, I'd be happy to talk to his parents, tell him what to expect, but all you can do is encourage him, give him a lot of love and support, and see what happens.
And don't send him any chocolate while he's at boot camp.
No jelly donuts.
Please.
And to further reinforce that drive that you had when you're joining, a lot of people don't know this that are out there listening, but Marine recruiters don't act like every other recruiter. They don't hustle to get numbers. They hustle to get quality. And I actually had to work to get things out of my recruiter instead of him coming to me.
Yeah.
Like these dudes are back there checking to make sure that you really want to be there.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to make it if you don't want to be there. So
that's right. And I think, and help me with this, but I think they're still the only ones that are making numbers.
Oh yeah,
right now.
Absolutely.
Everybody else is hurting to get folks to join, and the Marines aren't.
It's that brotherhood culture. It's that challenge culture. It's that squared away culture. I think that just sells itself. You don't have to work for that.
And it selects the right people.
Yeah.
Right. That kid that gets that in his head. That's what I want to do. You already know he's the right person if he gets that in his head, because those that aren't ready for that kind of commitment, that kind of excellence, that kind of perfection, they're not interested in going. They would rather. Somewhere else.
And they're all recruiting from the same high schools. The only thing that's different is that mindset. For the kid that joins the Marines and makes it.
Yeah.
And for me, I wasn't in the military. I did law enforcement, but knowing both of you both have similarities in the right way. Mm-hmm. And many other Marines I've met in my life are exactly the same way.
And it never changes.
It never changes.
No.
No.
And you know him well. Ron Skermetta,
yeah.
Right? 82 years old. He's no different than we are.
Nope.
Except he hobbles around a little bit now because he's 82 years old, but he's got it in his heart, and you can see it in his eyes when you talk to him.
Right.
And that's what I love about it, and that's what I told Kyle when he first decided that was, and that's a funny story too. I said, dude, this is lifetime. This is a lifetime thing. You're going to be a Marine forever. It never goes away. 16 years old there, we're doing lacrosse at Ocean Springs. And my wife and I had convinced him not to go into the Marine Corps. Not directly. We were pushing Coast Guard because I didn't want him to do to his family what I did to my family.
Right.
It's
right.
tough.
Yeah.
It's hard on the family. So Coast Guard's, man, what an honorable service. They do every time. This was before everybody was at war. Every time the Coast Guard takes off, they're doing a real mission. They're going to save somebody's life. They're going to enforce laws. They're going to do whatever. They've got brand new equipment, right? Great equipment too. And they just come out with that new helicopter that's a sniper platform.
Right.
Right. This is years ago. And then Hurricane Katrina hits, and Coast Guard's everywhere. And Kyle's out in the yard watching them, just like I was at that age, and enthralled by the idea of doing that. So we had him brainwashed. He was going to go in the Coast Guard. And he was about 9, I guess, at the time, or 10, somewhere in there when he started thinking that way. Now he's 16 years old, and he's coming down the stairs, and he's got all his lacrosse gear, and he's got his head kind of down. And I said, what's your problem? You got something on your mind? He said, Dad, I can't go into the Coast Guard. So, okay, now it's a teaching moment, right? I got to be a dad. How do I handle this? I
Figure it out as you go.
Yeah. I said, Kyle, you've been talking about this since you were 9 years old. You've always wanted to be a Coast Guard pilot, but you're not doing this for me. You're doing this for you. This is your life, so you need to decide what path you're going to take. But you've really been talking about serving your country for a long time. What's changed? He says, I'm still going to serve my country, just not in the Coast Guard or the Army or the Navy or the Air Force.
Waiting for the punchline there.
And I put my head down and I said, dude, your mother's going to kill you. And he, at 16 years old, he said, you know what, Dad, my mother will get over it just like yours did. And
I love Kyle.
The rest is history.
I love Kyle. But, the thing that I witnessed, once again from the outside looking in and being around your family so much when they were all around, before they had, gone and done better things in their life and they were still living at home with you, is I personally could see a lot of the traits that you have before he went into the Marines were already instilled in him. Mm-hmm. And I think, for some of the people watching and listening, as a dad, the Marines taught you multiple things, not just about being squared away and about how to act and, how to carry yourself, but all those things translated over into your own kids, and I think today a lot of that's missing from our society.
Yeah.
In a big way.
Yeah. It's, you got to care. You got to care enough to know that you're putting another human being on the planet, and it's your responsibility to make them as good of a human being as you can. Yours, Dad, Mom and Dad, right?
Right.
Not the cops, not the teachers, not the priest. That starts at home. And thank you for saying that, Van. It means a lot.
It's true.
Yeah.
Look at him now. He's a success story because of that.
Both of them are.
Yeah, both of them are.
And they both had their own challenges, right, coming up. And you lived through all of that with us, too.
Oh, yeah.
And
it's part of growing up.
It is part of growing up. I think, I don't know, you said specifically about being a Marine, the things that taught me about being a dad, but, I got it from my parents. I was given the example of how to be a good parent, a good mom and a good dad. And Kim, my ex-wife, got it from her parents, too. And so the best part is Adam and Kayleen don't have any children yet, but Kyle and Augie got it from her parents. And we're blessed to be in this extended family now that thinks the same way that we do. And you watch my 2 grandkids that are now 6 and almost 3, and they behave like Kyle and Adam did.
Right.
They're good citizens already at that age.
Nice.
So that starts at home. I think that one of the pieces of my Marine Corps experience that do you have children, Derek?
I do.
Okay. One of the things about my Marine Corps experience that maybe shapes the way I parented was a lot of bad stuff happened, right, in the Marines.
Oh yeah.
And there was a lot of crisis. There was a lot of tragedy, and it doesn't make you hard. It makes you learn how to respond to that.
Right.
Right. Crisis can make you crumble if you don't have the strength to just stand there and respond to it rather than react to it.
Right.
And when your kids do something wrong, it was the same. It was the same thing. It's not, if that's the worst thing that happens to me today, I'll be okay.
Right.
So I'm just going to take a breath and count to 10, and
We're gonna get through
it. We'll get through it. We'll come out of the other side of it. We just got to give it time, and we got to think before we act. And Katrina was another great example.
Yep.
I don't know who said it. I wrote it down one day because I liked it. I don't know if I copied it from somebody, but crisis doesn't build character. It exposes it.
Right.
Right. Just like liquor doesn't build character, right? If somebody behaves differently when they're drunk, that's who they are.
Right.
It's not the alcohol, right? It's just exposing what character is underneath all of it. And Katrina was a great example of how people came together afterwards and did what had to be done. Those that cared, right? It shows the character of the people that are around you when you get in a situation like that. Because that was pretty ugly too. I mean,
Very.
yeah.
I think that those times kind of unify people too whenever they start seeing that character in each other. I think when you're tested, like in the case that you're talking about with Katrina, when people are tested, they come together.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that we pick up in the Marines as well.
Exactly.
That's why most people that are Marines, and I'm not trying to turn this into a recruiting commercial.
Yeah, I know. Sorry about that.
But I mean,
Yeah.
it's a fundamental to who I am, and it's fundamental to who you are.
Yeah.
Whenever you go through these crises, Marines that don't know each other can meet, and in 10 minutes be just shooting the breeze like they've known each other their entire life, and it's because they've shared some of that same crisis and they've got that investment in each other. Jack Lucas, I got to have dinner with Jack Lucas. For the people out there that don't know who Jack Lucas is, he's the youngest Medal of Honor recipient in the Marines. He's from Hattiesburg, Mississippi. He dove on a hand grenade in Iwo Jima.
Yeah.
And they were going to put some grenade fragments from his body into the ship's mast to the Iwo Jima whenever they commissioned it, and they do that for good luck. And so the ship's captain I knew, and he had Jack over for dinner as a guest of honor, and he called me up. He said, "I got a dude you need to meet." And so I got to go over there, and within 10 minutes of meeting Jack Lucas, a man I've never met before, we're drinking Crown and we're riding around in the yard on his Jazzy.
I want to see that.
Singing the Marines hymn.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's those hard times that unify us.
Yeah.
And man, whenever it comes to being a dad, I think that's exactly what you're talking about. Is the kids see that you go through those hard times and that you react to them a certain way, and that's what creates who they are.
Yeah, absolutely. They learn by watching, there's no doubt. And if you fly off the handle and lose your temper and scream and shout and throw things around, they see that.
Yep.
They see everything.
So how'd you end up flying helicopters? You joined the Marines, and what happened?
Yeah, well, I learned as I went, right? And I learned when I got to Tulane I didn't want to be in the Navy. I wanted to be in the Marine Corps. And I still wanted to fly jets, right? Well, I learned when I got to flight school, no offense, the same thing. I didn't like any of the jet pilots I met.
Right.
There's jet pilots out there that I like, right? But
Right.
as a community, it wasn't what attracted me. Some of the helicopters, as a community, it wasn't what attracted me. What attracted me was working with a crew in an airplane that supported the Marine Corps mission, right?
Okay.
As best as it could. All of them support the Marine Corps mission, but in the CH-46, our job was to take guys like you into the fight and go back and get them out of the fight when it was time to leave. That was our primary mission, just moving Marines around. And it's called assault support. And that just really attracted me. I wanted to be an aviator, but I wanted to be in the middle of what the infantry was doing, and that was the best of both worlds.
So it wasn't the bird that you looked at and said, "That's the bird I want to fly." It was the mission.
It was the mission, yeah. Well, it was twofold. It was the mission. I also knew the V-22 Osprey was coming someday, and that it was going to replace the CH-46, and I really wanted to fly the Osprey. So,
Yeah.
in fact, my helmet, I've got a picture of my helicopter helmet from 1986 when I was going through. I just finished flight school and I'd moved to a fleet unit, to the training unit at New River. And my first flight in the CH-46, I had a V-22 sticker on my ear cup of my helmet because I just had it in my head. That's what I wanted to do.
Right.
And gosh, it
came to fruition.
It did. Yeah, everything lined up.
And to put that into perspective, the V-22, he's talking about flying it in 1996, you said? That thing did not, its first operational squadron did not see any use until 2005 in Iraq. So there was a lot of work put in by guys like you along the way to make that thing fly right.
And it's mechanical, right?
What part of it?
Well, the aircraft itself, a lot of it was mechanical.
No, and it actually, that's the funny part that people don't know about that airplane. The original concept that was from the Germans just after World War, or right around World War II in the 40s. They had a Fokker tilt wing, I think it was a tilt wing, that was basically the same concept. Take off like a helicopter and then tilt the wings and away we go. It didn't work that well because it was all mechanical. Had some other problems with it. But
maybe that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. So then, Bell built one in the 50s, and then they built another one. And I know, you're going to get on YouTube and call me all wrong with my stats. The XV-15 was the first tilt rotor that was really successful that Bell built.
Right.
And but it wasn't big enough for the Marine Corps to do anything with it. We needed one with a cabin the same size as a CH-46, could carry 24 combat-loaded Marines and all their junk, and or take external loads, do all that other stuff. The prototype that Bell built wouldn't do that. It was just to prove that the concept would work. And what took so long from the late 70s, 80s up until into the 90s when we first had the V-22. And started in the late 80s when we first started testing and flying the V-22. It was composite technology to make it light enough to be able to do what we needed it to do, and the computing power to be able to manage all of the stuff that's going on in the airplane.
Right.
Because it's so complex, there's very little of it that's actually mechanical. The flight controls, in fact, the only mechanical flight controls in the entire aircraft are the tubes that connect my stick to your stick, right seat to left seat.
Wow.
After that, it goes into a box, it turns into ones and zeros, and it travels around on wires to get to where it needs to be.
In the Matrix.
Yeah. It's funny when you're flying something very simple, very mechanical like a Cessna, when you do your control checks at the beginning, right? You turn the wheel this way and you look out there and you know what to expect to happen. In a fly-by-wire aircraft like the V-22, you move the sticks and you look out there and stuff does this, but you don't really know.
You don't know what it's actually doing. It's a response.
The joke is there's three computers that control the flight control system, 3 flight control computers. So there's 4 of you in the airplane that have a vote on what's going to happen. The pilot and the 3 computers, and the pilot has the least vote.
Wow.
You kind of suggest things and then the computers decide. Right.
Making it happen.
Yeah, to us it's transparent. Right. Houses get bigger, houses get smaller. It still works like it always does. It's just how you get there. It's all computers.
Man. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just, for some reason I thought a lot of it was mechanical, but maybe like you said, it was one of the ones from Germany that was mechanical, and that's why it didn't work like this one did.
So a lot of people don't know this as well. Navy and Marine Corps pilots, they have to learn fixed wing before they learn rotary wing. They're not like the Army pilots that learn one aircraft, the one that they're going to be assigned to. So was there any point in flight school that fixed wing or rotary wing that you said, man, this is hard. I don't know if this is what I really want to do. Did you ever hit a wall? Did you ever have any challenges there or anything that really hit you?
My dad, God bless him, when I was at the basic school, right after I got my commission, the Marine officers spend 6 months in basic school learning how to tie your shoes, right, before they let you out. And he paid for me to go fly civilian with a guy at Quantico just to get my solo flight, to get a little bit comfortable in the air before I went to flight school. Now they do it as a matter of course. Air Force, well, they used to anyway. They have an indoctrination program to kind of weed people out that don't have the aptitude or the desire to do it. And I remember getting in, the guy's name was Bob Blasek, and we were in a Cessna 150 from like the 40s, had a little Volkswagen.
Oh, man.
Got chicken wire holding it.
Yeah. And he was an old guy, and he's like, yeah, so you're going to love it. And we taxied out, and we took off, and I was terrified.
And he wasn't sweating a bit, though.
No, it scared the crap out of me going up, and everything's getting smaller, and we're going up like this, and I'm looking at these wings going, and that engine's going as we're climbing up. And the first thought I had was, I'm going to go back and sign up for artillery because I do not want to do
Heading to Fort Sill.
Yeah. Then the second flight was a little bit better, and by the third flight, I was like, man, this is awesome. I was really starting to get comfortable with being in the air and moving around like that. And what Dad did for me, unbeknownst to him, was got that edge off.
Okay.
So when I got to flight school and I got in the airplane for the first time, it wasn't my first time in an airplane.
Right.
So I knew what it was going to sound like. I knew what it was going to smell like. I knew what it was going to feel like. I wasn't going to be terrified of the trees getting small real fast, and things rushing by. So instead, I was listening to the instructor and doing what he told me to do. So I had some really great flights at the beginning because I wasn't getting over any of that fear of aviation that I had, back with old Mr. Blasek.
Prior to that. Well, Derek has a pretty important question for you. So before you ask him this question, I just want you both to know I put the red light on for you guys.
Awesome.
For those that don't know, Mr. Mike drives a 6.0 diesel.
No, he doesn't.
I'm just kidding. He's got a 7.3. Did you see his eyes?
I was about to come across the table.
I knew that was going to be awesome.
Blaspheme in here.
But you had it repainted how long ago?
In March.
In March. It looks
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
You got that red stripe on it.
No, May. It was May, but yeah.
You got that red stripe on it.
Yep. It's got a blood stripe on it.
Yep.
It's Marine Corps blue and gold and a red stripe.
So I just wanted you both to know I have the red light on for both of you this evening out of respect, and I appreciate you both.
Awesome. So did you ever get to fly at Camp Wilson, man?
Help me remember. Is that at Okinawa?
29 Palms.
Oh, 29 Palms.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doing that CAX in 88 that I was telling you about, we flew. You remember when Jason Rather got lost?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
We were there for that.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So God rest his soul, young kid was set out. They were doing a march, tanks and everything through the desert. 29 Palms is where they learn how to do desert stuff in combined arms, where you have artillery and infantry and airplanes and everybody bombing and doing everything. And they kind of practice their timing and their maneuver stuff. And this unit was moving through the desert at night, and he was set out as a traffic guide, right? Turn left here. So the vehicles are going. And then there wasn't any more vehicles. And Lance Corporal Rather stood there and said, uh-oh, everybody's gone. And so the story goes, he sat for a little while until he figured he sat long enough, and they indeed did leave him, and he started walking, which was an unfortunate decision. If he would have just stayed there, he would have lived. But where people got in a lot of trouble was the next morning, the folks that were supposed to account for him covered for him because they thought he was somewhere else sleeping or out in the Ville or doing something. And instead of saying, hey, Rather's not here, we need to go look for him, they covered for him. So the poor fella ended up dying out there in the desert from exposure. And the story goes that when they found him, he had ditched all of his gear because he's got all his combat gear on. And as he started walking, he started getting tired and hot and was getting rid of his pack and his helmet and his flak jacket and losing. When they found him, he had his rifle with him. Yeah.
That's funny, but it's not funny.
Yeah.
That rifle is your lifeline, and that's instilled in you in day one. So.
Yeah. So anyway, yes, I have flown out there and landed out there. Also went there for Fort Air Controller School at 29 Palms. That was fun because you get to drop real stuff, real close.
Yeah, that's why that combined arms exercise is there, because it's the only base in the Marine Corps that's big enough for all of that to happen.
Yeah.
So that's why we ended up out there.
So what advice would you have for a young man who's trying to decide what branch of the military they want to go in?
We said it earlier in the podcast. The reason I chose the CH-46 as the plane that I wanted to fly is because of the mission that it did.
Right.
And I think that same thing holds true for if you're trying to decide, if you know you want to go in the military and you're trying to decide which service you want to go into, I'd start there. You know, they each have their own mission, not what you see in Hollywood.
Right.
Actually get on their websites and do some reading. Don't believe what any recruiter tells you, because they're just trying to get you to sign on the bottom line. No offense to you guys either. I'm trying to offend everybody today if I can.
Oh man, you're just spitting truth, and it's just going to fall where it lays.
We're about the truth, Mr. Mike.
Yeah. So look at what they do, and see which one. You know, maybe it's the Space Force. Maybe that's what you want to do. Be part of the future and be a, what do they call them, guys? They're not space cadets. They're space something. Star troopers. Something.
Man, I don't know.
I don't know. But anyway, you know, look at what they do. Look at you know, if you
Guardians.
That's it. Guardians.
Space
Thank
Guardians.
you. Space Guardians. Guardians of the Galaxy with the little raccoon.
It's wild, right?
You know how the Marines say "oorah"?
Yeah.
They say "I am Groot."
Nice.
That's a good one, Mr. Mike.
Yeah. I would start there. If you know the probably the best thing is go meet people, not recruiters, other people that have served, and talk to them and see who you're attracted to.
Right, and who your personality kind of fits with.
Yeah. And you know, if you want a nice pool and luxury accommodations, go to the Air Force.
Yeah.
If you want to go out on a boat and stay there way too long and eat crappy food, go into the Navy.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to walk everywhere you go to the Army. I don't know. It's hard to do that. It's hard for me to do that because all I really know is the Navy and the Marine Corps, because that was my life, just like it was his life. You know? Don't pass up the Coast Guard. Don't pass up the Merchant Marines.
Right.
You know, don't pass up the Peace Corps. Do something to serve others wherever it is. But if you're thinking about the military, I'd say your best bet is to start by looking at the real mission, the one that Congress has given them and the president has given them. Which one appeals to you? Then go find some people and talk to them.
How old were you when the SR-71 Blackbird was like first around and the public knew about it?
Yeah, I was old enough to build a model of it that I got from Rose's over in Biloxi next to the Winn-Dixie.
You're dating yourself then.
And you know, one of the pilots of that just passed away.
I was just fixing to ask you.
Colonel Wilson.
Did he live in Ocean Springs?
I think he did. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd heard that, and that's why I wanted to ask you that.
Yeah. I met him several times. I knew his son growing up, Marty. Marty and Mike, I think, are the two brothers. One of them's an artist.
Yeah, Marty.
Marty is, yeah. But yeah, Colonel Wilson was a cool cat, man. And he had that look, you know.
That look about him.
He had that look. He's been up high and going really fast and not scared of anything before. You could see it.
That was one of the most fascinating, you know, my dad wanted to be a pilot.
Mm-hmm.
He ended up working for NASA for almost 36 years.
Wow.
But he was just too tall at the time. You know, when he was coming up and growing up, he was way too tall of a person to be in the aircraft at that time.
Yeah.
So he decided to just work for NASA and you know, help the space race in that way. But I was always fascinated by that when I was young. The first time I saw one of those, the first time I saw it in a movie, the first time I saw it, it just blew my mind. So I can imagine
that's a cool airplane.
You know, like, you know, because that was a path you'd already kind of decided to go on. So
you know what though, you can't count alligators from an SR-71.
That's true, because you're going too fast. You're going way too fast.
I taught a guy, so many years ago, he was going to go be the CO of Air Station Iwakuni, and he was an AB8 pilot. Slade Brewer was his name, Colonel Brewer, and he had never been in a helicopter before, but he flew AB8 Harriers, you know, that hover. So in order for him to go be Air Station CO at Iwakuni, he had to be helicopter qualified, because that was what he would fly out there to keep his minimums up. So they sent him down to Pensacola. My CO brings me into the office, say, Mike, it's Colonel Brewer. You're going to make him a helicopter pilot. I said, okay, how much time do I have? He said, 2 weeks. So we sat down and we came up with a curriculum for him to go through to hit just the high points of everything he really needed to know. He already knew how to hover, so that was easy to translate, but some other things about helicopters. And so took him out for 2 weeks. We did boat landings, we did confined area landings, we did pinnacle landings, we did formation stuff, a little bit of everything just to give him an idea, right? So one day towards the end of it, we're getting towards the end of the flight, and we're just kind of goofing around, you know, turning JP5 into noise, and I said, hey, let's go do some tactical approaches. We're flying the little Jet Ranger in Pensacola, so it's limited with what you can do. But to get into the LZ that we were getting into, I was taking my time going down a river, staying hidden below the trees, and then popping up at the end and setting into the thing, and scared the crap out of them because the things that we did in the helicopter you can't do in an AV8 apparently, or they'll turn upside down. Right. So he got real excited. He was a big fella too. And the next day we had another flight, and that impressed him so much that the next day I said, okay, hey, Colonel Brewer, we're getting close to the end here. Is there anything you really want to go out and do again? You want to do some more cows? You want to go back to the boat? He said, I want to go look for alligators again.
Because in order to hug that river tight, you were doing a lot of that.
A lot of that, and you're moving really slowly, right, to stay within the confines of the river, slow compared to an AV8, and you're really low to the ground so you can see everything.
Right.
And he says, I don't get to do that when I fly. I'm higher and faster, and things are going by so quick. It's all green. There's no real detail like there is when you're going slow. And it was funny that here, you would think that all of us are excited about going fast, but when you slow down and watch what's going on, that's kind of cool too. It's a completely different thing. And I can stop. And if I got to pee, I can land and get out and go pee.
Right. Yeah.
They can't.
You don't need a runway.
I learned very early on to hang out with the aviation guys because they usually had coolers in the helicopters.
Yeah.
Away somewhere.
Who you saw who just passed away, right? Al Gray.
Oh, no, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, 96 years old.
My goodness.
And you talk about the Marine's Marine. If you look up the picture of a Marine,
that's him.
In Webster's, there's General Gray. He was a 96th commandant. No, he was 96 years old. I don't remember which commandant he was.
I just know that he used to drink his coffee out of his canteen cup.
Yep.
Still, he was.
So we were doing a capabilities exercise at LZ Bluebird at Camp Lejeune.
Oh, I got a story about that in just a minute.
So we were hiding in the woods, had the helicopter parked and shut down while they were doing all their stuff. And at the appropriate time, we were going to turn our helicopter up, bring some Marines in, fly over, and let them fast rope out of the back of the helicopter onto a building and kill all the bad guys and, put on a big show for Congress. And this was practice day, the final full dress rehearsal before all the congressional entourage came down there to watch the show and give us more money so we could buy more stuff. Happens all the time, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so I got my helicopter parked out there, and we're sitting in the back of it eating MREs, and we hear a Humvee pull up. Like, who's coming out here? I mean, we're out in the woods, right?
Yeah.
At Camp Lejeune. And I said, who's coming down the road? My crew chief looks out. He says, sir, I think that's General Gray. I said,
Quit playing with me.
No way. The commandant? He goes, yeah, the commandant. And, we hear the door shut, and, how you doing, Marines? And he came up the ramp of that helicopter, wearing utilities just like everybody else was. We were in flight suits, of course, the pilots were, and the crew chiefs. He just wanted to come hang out. He wanted to get away from all that stuff and just come sit with the real Marines, all the young kids that were about to go put on this show. And we had about an hour to kill, and he used up about 45 minutes of it just sitting on the troop seats, chewing tobacco. I'm not sure if his wife knew that, but and spitting through the hellhole that was open in the bottom of the helicopter with all these Marines around him, just like telling campfire stories, man.
Yeah.
And I never forget that.
Yeah, that's the way I feel about Mattis.
Yeah, it's so same type of guy, right? And so we're talking about things that shaped us. That shaped me.
Yeah.
Here's the most senior Marine on the planet.
Hanging with you guys.
Hanging with us. Because he knows that's where the rubber meets the road, and I don't think he did it to show anything. He did it out of he was just a genuine guy, that really liked hanging around with the young Marines and listening to them and hearing what their version of the story is. Because you sit up in D.C. for a little bit too long, some people tend to forget what it's like to sit in a helicopter in the woods at Camp Lejeune.
Yeah, I was fortunate that all of my battalion leadership were Mustangs. They were former enlisted, so they all had our good interest at heart.
Yeah,
not that they wouldn't, but they knew what we'd been through. But I'll never forget being in Al Coot, and we had a air base there, so a lot of traffic was coming in and out of there. And General Mattis came to check the place out. And whenever he got off the bird, of course, we had everything spit polished and everybody lined up, full battle rattle, all this other stuff. He told my battalion leadership, he's like, "I'll be with you dudes in just a minute. I'm going to go talk to these Marines."
Right.
And so before he even spoke to the colonel, spoke to anybody else, like he walked around and, "Hey, Lance Corporal, how's it going? They treating you good here? Are you getting food? Are you getting, everything you need? Are you writing home? If you heard from your mama, where you from?" And that just spoke volumes to me. I wanted to follow that dude because he cared about me. Like he didn't know me from Adam's house cat, but he cared about the Junior Marines.
And when I say, and that shaped you, right? That had an impact on you.
Yeah.
When I say that changed me, that I will never forget that lesson that I learned from General Gray that day. Years ago, we, the company that I run now, we do a lot of leadership consulting and executive coaching and the organizational development stuff, individual development stuff at the professional level. And years ago, we reached out. We've got this huge network of folks that we talk to. Captains of industry, guys that run multi-billion-dollar organizations, the head of the American Cattlemen's Association, the head of the Colorado Drug Investigators Association, 2 Olympic coaches, and all these generals and admirals and captains and colonels that we've met over the years. So we've got this network of people that, as we're putting stuff together for leadership development, we don't just, "Hey, that's a good idea, let's stick it in there." We build something and then we pilot it and we farm it out to these guys and say, "What do you think?" So some years ago, we got this crazy idea to call all these people and interview them and just ask them one question. And these are, like I said, very senior guys, been around for a long time. The question we asked them was, "What have you narrowed your leadership diet down to?" And we wrote down exactly what they said. Raw, right? One of the guys, one of the coolest things I read was hire adults.
That's awesome.
You can take that a lot of adult has nothing to do with what age you are. Ed, it was Ed's brother. Ed says, "What do you mean?" He says, "Hire adults. Then you don't need a lot of rules. You get people that get stuff done."
People,
Right. So one other thing, Ed interviewed me and I interviewed him. That's my business partner, Ed Gilchrist, also former Marine. So after we did all these other interviews, they were like, "Hey, let's interview each other." So he asked me, and I looked at him and I said, "Talk to the cashier." And he says, "Holy cow, that's huge." But it's exactly that, right? Where did I learn that? The cashier is the same person as the owner of the store, as the guy driving the Maybach in the parking lot, right?
Right.
He or she behind that counter is trying to make it too, and they've got a story, and they deserve the same respect that anybody else does, whether they got tattered jeans or silky pants on, shiny pants. It doesn't matter. Just talk to people. Put your damn phone down, right, and have a conversation. So I told Ed to talk to the cashier. Well, that's still in the book that we're writing, that quote.
That's awesome. Well, that's what's so important about our podcast is one thing that I tell Derek often is, one thing I personally didn't think about when we started this podcast is how much we would get from talking to other people.
Oh, yeah.
And how much people we interview get from talking to us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because certain people hold stuff in forever.
Yeah.
And they come on here and they're talking to us and they don't realize it, but they're letting something go sometimes.
Yeah.
And I get a text message or a message, afterwards, and they're like, "Man, I needed that. Thank you."
Yeah, that's great.
But that's not my intention, but
sure.
It's kind of ever evolving, and we're thankful for that. Yeah. And you just got to talk to people.
Yeah.
You
got to talk. You have to communicate with folks. I've told people for the last couple of years, I know how to solve all of society's problems with 2 simple new rules, to pass 2 laws. Outlaw automatic transmissions and smartphones. If you got rid of both of them, people would pay attention when they're driving, and they would have to start communicating with each other again.
Yeah.
You know what?
And learning.
And learning, yeah. I remember going on campus at Tulane for the first time. And I grew up down here where back then, at least back in the 70s, when you passed somebody, you waved to them. You've never seen them before in your life, right? You raise a finger or you wave or what? This finger, not the other one, right?
Yeah.
Just a hey, how's it going? kind of thing. You pass somebody on the sidewalk, you know, the chin wag or the, hey, how you doing today? A great day. You know, whatever. Say
Some sort of acknowledgement.
some sign, some acknowledgement that there's another human being in your presence, right? So I get to Tulane where 75% of the student population is not from here. They're not from the Deep South. Most of them are from the Northeast because it's an expensive school to go to. I was very blessed that the Navy paid for that because it's really expensive to go there.
Yeah.
It's a great school. It's got a great academic reputation. And because of that, a lot of people that are here are from New Jersey, New York, in that area, big cities, right? And folks don't do that up there.
Yeah.
Normally, right? There's too many people, too much going on, too much moving around. And when you do, like, engage somebody like that,
They think you're trying to rob them or something.
yeah. Yeah. So that was the first time I saw that was at Tulane. I'm like, man, that was rude. But it you know, you just got to understand that everybody sees life a little bit differently. They weren't being rude. So, connected story, when Brandy went to New York for COVID, she had that same experience. She said, until you get to know them.
Yep.
Once you break through that shell, well, my wife is a nurse. She's a practitioner now. And when COVID happened, she went to New York and volunteered volunteered. She got paid to go up there, but she volunteered to go up there and do this job at Northwell Hospital right in the middle of ground zero of COVID I think she was there for 5 or 6 weeks. And working with all those folks up there, and she said when you first get there, they're kind of very closed off, very, not cliquish, just not warm and embracing like we are in the Deep South, right? It's just the way we grew up until you get to know them. And then she met some of the coolest people she's ever worked with up there, you know?
It's just because of their environment. They're
I think so.
constantly up there. They're constantly watching their back, making sure they're not getting mugged on the subway or getting their car stolen or anything like that. Because I've been in New Jersey and New York, and I'll never forget I held the door open for somebody one time, and they would not go before me.
Yeah, they look at you.
They looked at me and said, "No, you go," because they thought I was going to rob them as
hit them over the head
or
or
something.
something.
But that's just the way, like you said, we were raised. You know, my rule of thumb to that now is if I'm in a state that doesn't serve sweet tea, I won't hold the door open for somebody. I'm just telling you.
What's the?
Never really thought of that as a marker there. But
You're welcome, guys. You're welcome.
Yeah, how it was Hank Williams Jr. So we say grace and we say ma'am.
Yep.
And if you ain't into that, we don't give a damn.
Yeah, but I'm serious because most of those states in that quarter of the country, you ask for sweet tea and they bring you a cold tea on ice and some Splenda, and you're like, you don't have to be a physics guy to know this isn't going to work out.
Right.
You can't take cold tea and sugar and make that sweet tea. That's not how this works.
if you got a lot of time stirring, maybe.
I don't know.
It's still going to get stuck in your teeth.
Might as well put a straw in sand because that's what it's going to feel like.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my go-to. If they don't serve sweet tea in this state, I'm not holding the door open for them because they're going to look at me crazy anyway.
Yeah.
So looking back, like we're switching gears just a little bit here because I just got to know.
Yeah.
First off, joining the Marines is not for everybody, and it's not easy, regardless of what your job is, or successfully navigating it and making it to be a Marine. And then you're a pilot, which is something that has a high dropout rate as well. You have to be intelligent to do it. You have to be motivated to do it. You had to have had some hard times in there where you had to struggle. What is special to you that kept you moving? What kept you motivated?
It was I can't put my finger on anything other than the desire to fly. I really, really wanted to fly. I had a lot of help. My roommate was 1 week ahead of me all the way through primary flight training. So he was doing events and coming back from him and debriefing me before I had to go do the event.
Okay.
And I love Barney for that. He was my best man at my first wedding. Barney, he lives up in Indiana now. And it used to anger him that he would go get, he would come back with this grade on a test or a flight or whatever, and I would come back with just 1 or 2 points higher than him on every single one.
Nice.
But it was because I wasn't stupid. I was listening,
Right.
I was asking him questions. So there was that. There was, I had told so many people, and so many people knew, my family, my friends and everything, that that's what I was going to do. There was no way I was going to come back and say I didn't do it.
That's what I was waiting for.
Yeah.
I knew that was coming.
No way.
I just didn't know when.
Yeah.
Persistence.
Yeah. I just couldn't, I could not do it.
Yeah.
Right. Whatever it took, I was going to do it. I had to go extra. I had a couple extra times at Tulane because 18 years old, briar patch like New Orleans.
Right.
First time without real adult supervision, and you gotta make yourself do your studies. And well, hell, about the time I should have been studying was when all the bars were opening up downtown or uptown, and it was tough. I struggled for the first several years at Tulane, and the reason, because I wasn't smart enough to be there. I was not smart enough to be there. That's a tough school. The only reason I graduated and became a Marine in the first place was because of the major that was there, the Marine Corps major that was there, that was in charge of all the students, Lou Campanosi. He's still a professor at Tulane, by the way.
Wow.
I think he might be a professor emeritus now. But he saw something, right? This guy is having a hard time getting his stuff together, but if he ever does, he's going to be a good Marine.
So he invested in you.
He did. He saved me, because they should have kicked me out a bunch of times. Just because of my grades, not because I was, unruly or doing illegal things or whatever, but I couldn't get my grades up because I wasn't studying. I was playing. I was in New Orleans. Come on.
A lot of things can lead you off the path.
Yeah, there's a lot of paths to take there.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot from that too, from Lou. Another guy, Jerry Humble, the guy that invented the R2P2 process for the Marine Corps, Force Recon in Vietnam. He said it took him his entire career to figure out that sometimes your job is not to save somebody. And that's a tough decision too. And you gotta have some wisdom before you get to that point where you go, you know what? This band guy, he just shouldn't be on our bus. And having the stomach and the strength to go in a professional and adult manner to explain to him that he needs to find another line of work.
Right.
Because this ain't it for him. That's a tough one.
We call that training triage in law enforcement. You know, sometimes you gotta weed them out.
Yeah, you do. How much time we got?
We got a couple minutes.
Okay. Because you told me a little bit about what we're going to talk about, and there's one piece. I don't know if you know this. Brandy calls me Honest Abe. Have you ever heard her say that?
No.
Or George Washington, right? I cannot tell a lie. I heard something years ago that if you always tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything.
That's true.
Right? And it may have been my dad or my mom or somebody that said it, but it stuck with me. And then I watched the movie Rob Roy. Do you remember that? In Scotland, right, when the Scots were fighting the Brits. And Liam Neeson plays Rob Roy. And he tells his son when he was very small that honor is the gift that a man gives himself. And you'd think you're going to learn something from Hollywood. Boy, that really hit me in the face.
Yeah, it's true.
Your integrity is something that you choose, right? Your honor is something you choose. Nobody gives that to you. How you react to things, how you respond to things is a decision that you make, and you've got complete control over it. And that's what folks don't get sometimes, especially young folks growing up that get mad or angry at something. No, you can decide whether or not you want to get mad at something, or you can decide if you want to learn from it or get better, right?
I used to tell the guys, sometimes you'd pull somebody over for a speeding ticket and they had warrants, and you say, hey, look, don't make your situation worse.
Yeah.
Just kind of be that voice of reason to them in that time. Don't fight. Don't get crazy. Just go handle it. It's paperwork, man.
Yeah.
Don't make it worse than it already is.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times people in society, they're stressed out. There's too much news. There's too much going on every day. The world is crazy, but you kind of have to stand fast and put your face into the wind and deal with it.
Yeah.
In a logical, relaxed way, or you will make your situation worse.
Yeah.
And I think that while some of us may never come up with that one quote that everybody remembers or make that big mark, I think if you stand fast in the hard times and you don't overreact and you're that dude that everybody can turn to, that's going to be your legacy.
Here's one, my closing statement, right? In the aircraft, we have a pocket checklist, your emergency checklist, right? It's got other stuff in it, how to start the plane, how to shut it down, and all that. And you always, even though you did it 1,000 times and you can start it from memory, you don't. You follow the checklist and go line by line to make sure you don't miss anything. All the emergency procedures tell you if this happens, take these steps, right? Do this stuff. I was a flight instructor for a long time, and I taught every one of my students the same thing. I said, the very first thing you do when you get into trouble in an airplane, when something happens in an airplane, you've got an emergency, is count to 10. Or wind the clock. They all have an 8-day clock. Wind the clock first, then go through the steps. It's the same thing that we're talking about, right? How are you going to react to a crisis? Don't jump, right? Just stand there for a second, take a couple breaths, count to 10, and then decide how you're going to respond. That's true in a conversation. That's true in a relationship. It's true at a stoplight when somebody cuts you off. Just hold on a second and decide what the best thing to do is. So you don't make it worse, man.
Wise words.
Not going to. Mr. Mike, we appreciate you so much, man.
Dude, I loved it.
Thank you for coming on.
Yeah. Thanks, brother.
Thanks,
Good
man.
seeing you again.
You too.
Awesome meeting you.
You guys, please like and subscribe. We'll see you next time. Thank you very much.